Hello friends, welcome. Friends, Reliance Jio came out with their quarterly results. Now, friends, I find these results quite interesting because it resonates some of the points which I have been amplifying and repeating in my channels regarding the character of India's mobile industry, constraint that it has, and what kind of regulatory structure that we have set up, which prevents us to follow a particular direction regarding technology monetization. Now, this result, I am going to dissect this result point by point, and let me tell you that why it resonates with some of the points which I have said. And let me state those points in the beginning itself so that you understand as we go through the presentation, you will be able to kind of clearly make out, as the presentation flows, that how these points get amplified by the quarterly results. Now, the first thing I said that the 3.5 gigahertz spectrum will not be able to support so many FWA subscribers. If you recall this video which I did just a few days back, can Jio 5G FWA really scale in India? Hidden limits of capacity and cost of spectrum. Now you will see in this result, it clearly points out in the transcript also when they explain this result, clearly points out that they have acknowledged the spectrum capacity issues and therefore they are driving themselves to a UBR. Now UBR has been quoted in this result as if a Eureka technology, Indian innovation, and even the global players are looking at Reliance Jio as to how they have been able to unlock this innovation. So that's how they have presented UBR. So the point is very clear that 5G spectrum, 3.5 gigahertz band does not have the capacity to support so many FWA, and they are therefore looking at UBR, and they say that unlicensed spectrum has unlimited capacity, right? So that's the message which comes out from this result, which they have stated clearly. The second thing that comes out in this result is that their mobile handset data is not growing at the scale that it is expected. And I'll tell you why. If you look at this result, you'll find that there is a table which says operational update. In the operational update, there is a row which says data traffic in billions, right? Which is 54 billion GB, which is 54.7 in this quarter. In the last quarter, it was 48.9. And in the first quarter of FY25, it was 44.1. Now, if you do a calculation, which is very simple to do, you divide this number by this number and divide by 3. And you get this 37 GB per month as the per capita data consumption. It's very simple. You can do it yourself. Now, friends, this number looks quite large compared to the number that was, if you divide this in first quarter of FY25, you would divide this by this and divide by 3, you will get a number roughly around 30. So that's why they have given a data growth of 24%. Now, friends, if you ask me, this is not 24% as regards mobile is concerned, because these numbers include FWA as well. So I will show you in my presentation that mobile growth has been completely static. And that's what I am going to explain to you how the mobile growth. There is a large component of data of their data. This out of this 54.7, the FWA constitute a very, very large proportion in this total data which they are saying of 54.7, which clearly shows that their mobile business is static. And then looking at these two issues that Reliance Jio is facing in their business, that their mobile data traffic is not increasing and all their data growth is basically because of FWA, it clearly points to the fact that there is a fractured spectrum policy that we have in our country, where low frequency bands are constrained and therefore it doesn't have capacity, or the population is not using data because the pricing of the plans have increased. And high frequency bands, are of little value because Reliance themselves says that 3.5 gigahertz band doesn't have enough capacity to support UBR, so support their FWA. So let's look at first the Jio's data consumption analysis. It's very, very important, friends, to understand that how their mobile business is working from a data consumption point of view. So impact on FWA on data growth. So if you look at the data, the reported versus adjusted mobile data consumption, I will give you the calculation. The reported per user consumption, as I told you, it is 37 GB per month. It has been mentioned in their results. If you adjust it for FWA, it comes out to be 30.7 GB per month. And how? This particular slide will tell you. The assumptions are the total data traffic, it was already given in the result of 54.7 GB. Subscriber is 498. FWA base is 7.4 million. FWA usage may assume that it is 400 GB per month. Period 3 months. Calculation means you multiply it by 3. 7.4 multiplied by 400 multiplied by 3. It comes out to be 8.88 GB. Then if you subtract from 54.7, 8.88 GB, it comes out to be 42.82. And 42.82, if you divide this, with the 498 and then multiply by 3 because of 3 months, it comes out to be 30.7. So the comparison is then in Q1 FY25, it was 30 GB per month. And if you adjust that for FWA and if you assume 400 GB, if you assume FWA higher, then this number goes down further. So there is hardly a 2.3% growth, not 24%, friends. So it's clearly evident. You can see from a graphical point of view, Jio's data consumption versus reported versus adjusted. 30 GB, 30 if you look at this for FY25, it was 30 GB. FY26, it was 37 GB, and therefore they report a growth of 24%. But actually, the number is from 30 GB per month per user to 30.7 GB per month, and therefore the growth is only 2.4%. And from a traffic composition point of view, you can see FWA is 16.2% of the total data of 54 GB, billion GB, which they are reporting, and mobile traffic is 83.8 GB. So this is one part of the discussion. Then comes the UBR. Now, if UBR has been amplified in their transcript and whatever is being stated as their accomplishment. So what they are saying is UBR matters for Jio because India has got around 330 million homes, and as per them, these homes will require broadband at some point of time. So that is what they're saying, that they will need broadband at some point of time. Currently, they don't have broadband, but they will need broadband, and it will be very difficult to give them broadband using fiber optic cable because fiber rollout is costly, slow, and operationally complex. 5G FWA alone cannot scale because of spectrum capacity and constraint, which I already showed you in this video very clearly, that their 5G spectrum does not have enough capacity to support even 10 million subscribers, right? That's why I said that everything which I said gets amplified by this results. And then they are saying UBR ensures faster rollout, fiber-like speed without civil work. So they are extremely gung-ho about UBR. Now, if you look at that particular video, I said that 5G FWA is very costly. From a device point of view, the outdoor unit. Now, UBR outdoor unit, if they had been able to reduce the cost, then it kind of makes it very attractive from them to be using that as a deployment option compared to 5G FWA, because 5G FWA spectrum is only 100 megahertz, out of which you have to keep 30 megahertz for mobile and 70 megahertz for FWA. You don't have sufficient capacity, and the spectrum is very, very costly. So they are going towards 5 gigahertz band and maybe possibly 6 gigahertz band. If the power limits are increased, they will be using it for UBR, right? So if you see, UBR ensures faster rollout, fiber-like, and key enabler for Jio's 100 million homes. That's what they are stating, right? So if you look at from a spectrum strategy point of view, which I have been repeating again and again, India's spectrum strategy is a paradox. It's a complete paradox. It is clearly proven from the Jio's financial results and operational results they have acknowledged the fact that they can't scale 5G FWA in the 5G spectrum. Why? They have 3.5 gigahertz band, and 3.5 gigahertz band has got limited capacity because they have got 100 plus, approximately 100 megahertz spectrum. In some circles, they have 130 megahertz spectrum, but those are not very important circles. So they don't have capacity, and therefore they are pushing for UBR. Now, the question that we have to ask now is, friends, if they are pushing for UBR and they are going towards unlicensed spectrum, then what is the point of acquiring any more spectrum in higher frequency band, like 3.4, in 4 gigahertz, in 26 gigahertz band, even in 6G spectrum? Because the dynamics of the Indian market is such that they can't afford this high cost devices which comes with these spectrum, because FWA does not scale as mobiles do. One mobile phone development cost can be amortized over millions of devices, 100 million, 200 million devices. But FWA, Jio claims that they are the largest FWA operator with 7 million plus subscribers. But with 5G having deployed for so long, other people could not catch up. So the volumes of FWA is not large enough. So, but if India needs FWA, India does not have optical fiber capability to be driving towards all homes. Then imagine that, why do we need high frequency spectrum? We don't need many more 3.5 gigahertz spectrum. We don't need any 6G spectrum in high frequency band. We don't need millimeter wave spectrum. We don't need any 5G spectrum in the high frequency band. But we need spectrum in the low frequency band, 700, 800, 900, and in 600 megahertz, because your mobile does not have capacity. And that is why I'm saying that there is a spectrum paradox in India. It clearly proves from the Jio's financial results. Whatever I have been saying from the very beginning has been proven right. There is a spectrum paradox in the mobiles, which actually leverage low frequency band. You don't have capacity, therefore your data is not growing, right? Even though you have got such cheap data traffic, but your FWA consumption is increasing. And since you are not able to manage your FWA in 3.5 gigahertz band, you are looking towards unlicensed spectrum. So you don't require licensed spectrum. So let's look at why India's spectrum policy needs a rethink. So the paradox, which I have already explained, Jio invested heavily on 3.5 gigahertz spectrum in 2022, but uses it largely for FWA due to poor indoor coverage. And let me show you how much Jio has invested. So this is the chart which I maintain in my website, comprehensive analysis of spectrum auction outflow by operator year and circle. So here I have chosen Reliance Jio and all the years where Reliance Jio participated in the auction, and the currency is rupees K crores. So look at the year 2022. Jio spent 39.27 crores for 10 megahertz of spectrum in 700 and 33.774 crores of 100 megahertz approximately, some circles 130 megahertz. So this is almost at par with that of 700 megahertz, slightly less. So you can see 33.74 divided by 39.27, this is how much? 85%, 86%. So if this spectrum was so valuable, 3.5 gigahertz spectrum, and you can't use it for mobile, you are using for FWA and saying that I don't have capacity, that I have to do unlicensed spectrum, you might as well got another 10 megahertz of spectrum in 700 and abandoned this 3.5 gigahertz band altogether and went ahead with UBR from the very beginning. Why didn't you do that? That's a question that anybody could have asked. Why did you get to 26 gigahertz spectrum? But anyway, 26 gigahertz is a different story, because they got 26 gigahertz to reduce their SUC charge, which people know who are knowledgeable enough, because as you got 26 gigahertz spectrum and where the SUC for 5G spectrum became 0, so your weighted average actually number went down, right? So for that, I can understand they got 26 gigahertz spectrum. But why purchase so much spectrum for 3500 megahertz band when it was needed to be purchased at the low frequency band where you don't have capacity, right? So this is the spectrum paradox, The paradox explained. The UBR on unlicensed spectrum, 5 gigahertz, soon 6 gigahertz, offer gigabit of speed from home broadband at low cost, which Reliance Jio is claiming, and Reliance Jio is saying that the whole world is looking towards them to able to emulate this technology. So that is the kind of claim that they are making, right? If they are making such claim, so it is very clear that India does not require any more licensed spectrum. DOT should close down the auction process. They should abandon the auction process. And it kind of raises question that why Reliance Jio was so gung-ho about 6 gigahertz band not getting delicensed. They have been pushing very, very hard through COI. They wanted that for IMT. I do not understand. If they can't use that 3.5 gigahertz spectrum for IMT, which is for mobile based, and they are so gung-ho about UBR, why did they not push 6 gigahertz band from the very beginning, that full 1.2 gigahertz for unlicensed usage? This is, I cannot understand how the regulatory narrative works. I do not understand. So it looks like the business people are completely at arm's length compared to the regulatory guys who don't know what they're doing, right? So if FWA is solved by UBR, need for additional high frequency spectrum in 3.5 gigahertz millimeter wave collapses. Licensed 5G spectrum is still needed in low frequency band for handset based mobility solution. When Reliance Jio claims that they have size slicing capability, they can offer premium services, I am going to challenge them. 10 megahertz is not sufficient, friends. I have been saying this. And Bharti's Gopal Vittal has said in one of the meeting, which I faintly recollect, that 10 megahertz is neither here nor there, and that's why Bharti probably has left 700 megahertz band. I answered one of the viewers' question in the comment section. So the strategic question is, why spend billions on high band auction when UBR can handle broadband better? So this question actually has to be answered. You can't really have the cake and eat it too. You don't need spectrum. You can do unlicensed, so make everything unlicensed spectrum. The 6 gigahertz band should have been completely unlicensed. You should not have licensed that 6 gigahertz spectrum, which the COI was going ahead and lobbying the government. So the recommended spectrum strategy, we have to focus on low frequency band. Friends, I have been saying this from the very beginning. You cannot monetize 5G. If you have to monetize, if you have to go to a proprietary technology to serve India's broadband requirement, then what is the need for 5G, friends? What is the need for 5G? 5G should be completely abundant. It is a brand which has been, just put out there to get some ratification, some acknowledgement, but it is not getting used. It's not getting used, friend. If UBR is such a great thing, which Reliance Jio has been saying in all their, public statement. So you have to rethink our spectrum strategy. The government has to understand this now clearly, that the businesses are going in a different direction altogether because they have made spectrum like gold and platinum. And they will not be able to fully monetize 5G unless they open up 700 megahertz spectrum, more spectrum, 20 to 30 megahertz, or 600 megahertz, 800 megahertz, 900 megahertz, all these low frequency band. Then only you will be able to monetize 5G or 6G at the handset level. You cannot do that because India's demographic is different. India's paying capacity is different. It's a very, very price sensitive customer. And if you need UBR like technologies to address your home broadband need and you are not looking towards 5G to do that, you are saying that UBR is going to scale to 330 million because the device cost is very low, then what is the need for 5G, friends? So anyway, friends, that's all in my video. I thought of explaining this, that just to summarize, mobile data growth is not happening at that same rate, which is clearly shown in the calculation which I showed you. Second is, Reliance Jio is pushing for UBR. And therefore, it questions the fact that why they needed so much spectrum in 3.5 and why they should invest more in spectrum. Then the third important, which is actually the most important, the mobile-based 5G monetization is going to become harder and harder because you need low-frequency band in order to drive those handset-level differentiated applications, which is possible using SA. 5G standalone network. And that you can only do if you have sufficient capacity, optimal capacity. 10 megahertz is not sufficient, friends. And therefore, the government of India has to rethink about their spectrum strategy, that they think of making money by, extracting pound of flesh from the operator. It's not going to happen. The customers are continuously going to be strained as per their mobile service capabilities are concerned, because the government has blocked all spectrum and made the spectrum prices very, very high. So that's all, friends, in this video. I hope that you like this video, and let me know if you have any comments in the comment section. And thanks for watching till the end, and I'll come back with a new video and a new topic next time. Thank you very much, friends.